what we're going to do now is we're going to be using a couple of different blending modes to fine-tune the sharpening that we're going to do. Again, this can be done with either unsharp masking or the smart sharpening. So let's go ahead and start this, and let's see what we can do with it. All right. Let's start with our flower again. Let's just open it up. And what we're going to do, of course, is bring this up to 100%. And let's just stretch it out a little bit so that we can see a little more of the image. Grab that corner. There we go. And again, I'm just going to use the unsharp mask here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a couple of layers. I'm going to call one Sharp Lighten, and I'm going to call the other one Sharp Darken. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change the blending mode of Sharp Darken to Darken right here. And I'm going to change the blending mode of Sharp Light to Lighten. Now, let's hide the Sharp Lightening right now, and let's just look at the Sharp Darken. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to now go in and open my unsharp masking filter, and I am going to sharpen this image. But since I'm using the darken blending mode, only the pixels that are darker than the underlying image, my background image, are going to show. So let's go in here and let's increase our amount a little bit so that we can just see a little bit more of what's going on here. And you can see that it is sharpening it. And let's just say OK. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to highlight my sharpen light layer, and you can see that this layer is not sharpened. You see the bottom layer is sharpened. Here's my original, and I did some sharpening with the darken, and now I'm going to go into the lighten, and now I'm going to go and again choose my unsharp mask, and I'm going to sharpen this layer. Now I might use different amounts of sharpening in here. Let's move this around a little bit, and let's since I may not want so much of the lightness around there, I can sharpen it a little bit less, which would give me a little less of that. And there we are. Okay, now I'm going to say all right, and let's go back and let's turn both of these off. There's my original image. Here's my darken layer. I'm going to turn that off, and let's look at the lighten layer, and that's a little sharper. And when I have the two of them together, I can choose how much of the lightening sharpening I want to use and how much of the darker sharpening I want to use, and it works beautifully on this image. Okay, let's look at a different image and see what happens there. Let's look at the blimp, because remember here we had some colors and we were getting some lightness and darkening in the colors. So let's open up this image, and I'm just going to accept it as it is with our nominal sharpening here. So we're going to open it. All right, let's take it up to 100%. And now I'm going to expand this window just a little bit. And here's our non-sharpened image. Okay, let's create our two layers. I'm just hitting Command or Control J twice. I'm going to call this one Lighten, Sharpen Light, and Sharpen Dark. Now, you may wonder, well, does it make any difference whether I have one layer above the other? Well, let's see. We'll take a look at that in just a second. So let's look at our Sharpen Dark layer. We're going to go in here. We're going to go to our Filter, Unsharp Mask, And again, we could use Smart Sharpen here. It's just that I'm choosing to use unsharp masking. And we're going to go in and let's sharpen this. Let's give it a little more sharpness right there. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to accept that. And then I'm going to go to my sharp light layer. And when I turn that on, you can see that it gets non-sharpened again. And we're going to go up to unsharp mask. And let's see what happens here. And now, remember, we're in the lighten layer, so we're only showing things that are lighter than the underlying. And I'm getting a little bit of halation around the words there, so let's dial that back down just a little bit. And we're also dialing down a little bit here in the colors. So now I say OK. Let's go back and look at the non-sharpened. Here's my lighten layer. And now I'm adding the darkening in. There's the darken layer there. And you can see that when I add my lighten layer in, I get a little less of the white lines around the edge up in here. Now, what happens if I switch my light and dark? Well, let's see. I couldn't see any changes there. Well, let's see here. I'm switching back and forth, and maybe a little bit of changes, but nothing significant. So here we are. Let's go back down into here. We look at our full image. And remember, when we're looking at this, this is at 27.6%, and we're getting all kinds of jagged edges here. So when we want to look at something on the screen, we want a multiple of 25. So we take it up to 33, up to 50%, and our jaggies are gone. So there we are. There's our image there. Now, like I said, this has different effects on different images. Let's look at a type of image where it has a really nice effect. Let's go into this headshot, and again I'm going to use my default detail here. So let's just open the image, and once this gets opened, of course, we're going to take it up to 100%. And I don't want to look at the mouth. I want to look at the eyes. Okay, here we are. Let's make our two layers here. And I'm going to turn both of them off. I'm not going to change my blending mode yet because I want to show you what happens here. I'm going to go into this layer, and I'm going to select my filter. I'm going to go to Unsharp Mask. And let's just pull the eye in here so that we can get about the same. There we go. All right, so here's our image. Here's before and after, and I can increase my amount a little bit here. There we go. All right, so there's my image, and I'm just going to say OK. Now I'm going to change my blending mode now to darken. And you can see that some of the halation, some of the light areas around here have vanished. Let me hit my Command or Control Z to backstep, and you can see that it looks a little bit nicer here. Now I do want to get some of that lightness back in there, but not anywhere near as much as I had. So now let's go up to our other layer. Let's rename this. Let's call this Sharpen Dark, and we're going to call this other one Sharpen Light. Okay, and again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my Unsharp Mask, and let's just pull the eye in there, and we can see that we don't have our sharpening on there. And let's tune that down. Well, we can go up just a little bit. All right, so there we are, and here's our sharpening again. Remember, this is the sharpening dark that you're seeing now, and this is the overall. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change my blending mode here to lighten. And notice there wasn't much of a change there. So I'm going to change my opacity, and bring that down. And now you can see that the sharpening effect, as far as lightening those areas, is a little more subtle. And in the case of a portrait, in the case of eyes, it works very, very nicely. And this looks like it might be a beautiful way to go as far as retouching eyes. Now, you may want to do selective parts of your image with different methods of sharpening, and we'll look at that a little bit later in one of the next tutorials.